Hey, welcome to News You Can Use. It's your host, BG. And we have a lot of stories to talk about today, including Ontario's minimum wage is going up, but we'll tell you by how much in just a hot second. Also, a notorious billionaire has agreed to help end world hunger. We'll have those details. Plus, a possible cyber attack took out Newfoundland's healthcare system. Yikes. And a man inspired by the death of his two friends has run across Canada for mental health awareness. It's a heartwarming story. But before we get to all those details, we do need you to do a few things, including subscribing to this channel right now, tapping that notification bell, and make sure to follow us on all of our social media. Those details are in the description right below. All right, good. Great. So some big news here in Ontario. Premier Doug Ford's government is increasing the province's minimum wage. It's expected that the minimum wage will be increasing to get this $15 an hour starting in January 1st to be exact.
Our government will raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour effective January 1st, 2022.
That might sound familiar to a lot of you, because I should highlight that hiking the minimum wage to $15 was already the plan before Ford was premier, but then he canceled those plans when he was elected. Now he's re-implementing those plans. So oddly enough, the timing of this is kind of interesting. January of 2022, you think 2022, what's happening in 2022? An election. Devin. What do you think about this?
There's always, it's always backhanded, right? It can never just be, we're giving people more money. But there's more exciting news as well, like away from just the average people or like minimum wage workers getting a raise. We're also seeing a raise for bartenders and waitresses.
Yeah, and that's a big deal because the minimum wage for food and beverage workers will be increasing and it's taking a steep jump from $12.55 to $15 as well, just like the rest of workers.
And I honestly have always thought it was so strange that they didn't make the same amount.
Yeah,
right?
Well, I guess the justification that a lot of, the government or, whatever used was that these people make tips. And because they make tips, that's supposed to supplement their income.
But that's not a steady stream of income. That's like relying on the $20 bill you find in your jeans to pay for your groceries.
Because you're never always going to make a tip. Let's bring in Kelly here. Kelly, I know you got some stuff. You were not going to be in News You Can Use. Welcome to the show.
And I'm like, give me a mic. No. Testing.
So much to say. So much to say.
Talk to us. Well, how you feeling?
I mean, I understand why people think it's not fair for servers to make less money. However, the reason is because of tips. Unfortunately, though, there isn't a standard for every restaurant, and every restaurant can do things differently, where sometimes you have to pull tips. Sometimes your tip out is based on your tips and not your sales. Sometimes, and a lot of people don't understand that. Like, the average person can say, I'm not tipping because this is literally your job. Right. But then they're not realizing, I'm making less than minimum wage and serving you, and you're telling me that this is my job, so you don't have to tip me.
I also think, where you're saying there's, no regulations, that's stupid, too. Why isn't it and I also think pooling tips is stupid. I really
There's
do.
a lot of things that are stupid.
Well, maybe they should just do what they do in Europe, where you just include the tip in the price of what you're eating.
But the thing with that, right? But with gratuity, the assumption is you're going to give worse service because you don't have to work for that tip.
This is like a BG Show episode idea.
Yeah. And it's okay, well, I just paid for you to eat here because you didn't tip me.
Which is the problem.
Yeah, I'm not paying for you to eat here.
But
I should have paid your bill.
No, I don't get it. No, I'm with you 100%. I don't get it. Why should they ever have been relying on the generosity of other people?
My creative brains are moving here, and I think we're going to make this an BG Show episode idea because I think we got to go into this.
I pitched this months ago.
Thank you, and we'll get back to it. But when we're talking about problems, another problem is that while the minimum wage is going to increase, that doesn't mean that $15 can get you to actually live comfortably in this province.
And I don't understand, it's not a living wage.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it, especially with inflation going up, and which is the reason why the government is saying that they want to increase minimum wage, but inflation has gone up a lot. And just to live in the city of Toronto, many studies have shown that the minimum wage should be, or a decent living wage would be at least $22 an hour. Now, can small businesses afford that? That's another conversation to be had, but maybe what it requires is to have maybe different minimum wages depending where you live in the province. Let's hear what you guys think. Is $15 enough, or should the government implement different minimum wages depending on where you live in Ontario? Let us know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. Okay, so speaking of problems, we got to talk about this next story because we saw a province-wide healthcare crash on the East Coast in Newfoundland and Labrador over the weekend. Listen to this. Officials are saying it looks like the crash was caused by a cyber attack and it messed with a ton of appointments, procedures, and surgeries and COVID testing. It basically crashed the entire healthcare system. Here's the province's health minister. Take a listen.
That we may have been victims of a possible cyber attack by a third party. This led to progressive failure of what's been described to me as the brain of the data center and a loss of functionality in systems across the regional health authorities.
So he went on to say they're still trying to figure out who's behind it all. Right, Devin? This is an interesting story.
And it's interesting to me because despite all the technology we have, doesn't matter how far you come with computers and smartphones, they're back to pen and paper.
Right? And these hacks actually aren't that uncommon. Listen, it actually happened right here in Ontario to a few different hospitals last year, right?
Now that's supervillain behavior to me. Who's attacking a healthcare system?
But
That's
this
like
is
stealing candy from a baby.
seriously, but this is what hackers love to do. They want to get this proprietary information on all of us so that they can hold these governments or organizations for ransom. And I think that's what's really, really scary. And even before COVID, there were a lot of delays, and now they're seeing even more delays out in Newfoundland and Labrador because of this.
Yeah, it's just...
Well, if you are from Newfoundland and Labrador and you watch our show, let us know how things are, how things are going. Hopefully everybody's okay. All right, let's talk about another story. Speaking of problems, wow, everything's about problems today.
Lots of problems. Lots and lots of problems.
An infamous billionaire could be changing the world in a pretty big way by ending world hunger. So last week, CNN, they published an article where the head of the United Nations World Food Program, David Beasley, said it would only cost the world's billionaires a fraction of their net worth, around about $6 billion, to put an end to world hunger. Now, that headline was then fact-checked on Twitter, and things got a little bit interesting. Elon Musk tweeted out that if the World Food Program could outline how they would use the money to end world hunger, then he would sell his Tesla stocks and put the money toward it. But then things took an interesting turn because Beasley then responded, admitting that the article's headline was actually inaccurate, but said that that money would save over 40 million people from starvation. So Elon Musk then said, well, the UN would have to publish their plan to explain where the money would go. This is a lot of a drama.
Never stops.
So what's Elon Musk doing? Is he going to put his money where his mouth is? No.
I am not unconvinced that this isn't the UN calling his bluff and him calling their bluff right back.
But when you do have that amount of wealth, to know that you could change that many people's lives, why not just do it? I would do it if I had that amount of money.
Look at Oprah.
Yeah.
Oprah's a great example, right?
She gave away cars upon cars.
And lots of money to not just what's under the seats at Oprah's shows, okay? But she does lots of good work with her money.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? Should wealthy people be expected to donate their money to causes like the UN? We want to know right now. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. All right, and now to a heartwarming story. Let's talk about a little bit of a local hero who's following in the footsteps of Canadian icon Terry Fox. So the man's name is Skylar Roth McDonald. He's actually just 25 years old, and he's an ultra marathon runner from Alberta. He recently finished an 8,000-kilometer run across this nation, Canada, for mental health. Devin, this is pretty cool.
It is. So he started on Vancouver Island. He started in Victoria, ran right across the island, then took a ferry to mainland. He ran across BC, Alberta, all the way through the prairies, through Ontario, through Quebec. Then he got to the edge of Quebec, got on a ferry, did all the Maritimes, went to them and ran through them, and then finished in Newfoundland last week.
I feel exhausted for him. It took him 143 days, and he did all of this for a special reason. And Devin, you actually sat down to speak with him. Here's a bit of that interview.
Growing up, I lost two really close friends to suicide. And so, mental health quickly became a big part of my life, and it has ever since. And on June 1st, I began my run across Canada for mental health awareness and in memory of Josh and Eli.
I saw you post after your run that you didn't feel great. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I think a lot of people put a lot of emphasis kind of on the finish line. And for me, when I think of this run, like I won't remember the finish line. I'll remember the people that I've met along the way, the certain days that were very tough, the days that we overcame, and those sort of things. I just felt like it was kind of any normal end of the day run when I got to St. John's, which I'm sure, like I said, it hasn't really hit me yet that I've ran across Canada. So I'm sure it will. I'm sure a lot of that like underwhelmingness comes from like really being alone for, aside from having someone driving the RV, a lot of the time I'm on the side of the road alone.
What advice do you have for young people who are struggling with mental health?
My advice would be like, you don't have to use it. Mental health doesn't have to hold you back. You can use it as a superpower. Um, like I have depression, and I wait, and I know every single day like I have depression. But instead of letting that hold me back, I can remind myself of how many dark times you can get through. So my advice would just be shoot for the moon, because and you'll probably still get there. Like depression doesn't have to hold you back.
Wow. So honestly, I can't even imagine like what that would have felt like.
So the blisters alone are enough to make me not want to do it?
Like my feet's hurting just standing up here.
But get this, not only does he want to do it again, he wants to do it again in 70 days. He wants to cut 143 days in half and then do that.
Well, maybe we should just give him a round of applause. Dallas, good for you. Good for you. Carry on. Keep us posted, and we'll continue reporting on everything. In the meantime, that's it for News You Can Use. We want to thank you for joining us. A reminder, we drop News You Can Use every Tuesday and Friday, and if you do have a news story you want us to look into, email us, news@brandongodeshow.com. And if you haven't watched the latest episode of The BG Show, go watch that right now. It's about 4-day work weeks. Do you think we should have them, or do you not? You'll have to watch to find out. And that's a wrap. Bye-bye. Hey BG Squad, thanks so much for checking out our channel, and listen to this, we have more great content for you, like this video right here and this video right here. By the way, don't forget to subscribe to this channel right now and tap that notification bell.